work now. Cool. Welcome everyone to the final lunch club of the year. Thank you everyone for joining. This is actually the lunch club that I've been waiting for most of the year. So I'm very excited to finally get this going. As you know, today we are going to unpack climate financing for South Africa. I'm quickly going to introduce CSA, and then I hand over to Kuan from Green Cape and also from Kira, who has done some great work. My name is Katerina from CSA. And then right at the end of, obviously, the lunch club, we're going to also start a small discussion. So those of you that have been online with us previously, Circular South Africa has been created to amplify the potential and value of the just circular economy transition around or across South Africa. And we are really believing that by adopting circular economy principles, always having a just lens in place, we can really improve the well-being of people in the country, and obviously also take care of the beautiful environment that we are in. So what we have tried to do with the lunch clubs is really to have this platform on a monthly basis that is a short duration that people can just join, where we have some really good engagement on key topics that our members are busy with or that they are interested in, and really to make the information accessible and also to have those informal discussions. So we're really all about to break down the silos around circular economy and make circular economy accessible as such, and to draw the links to other discussions that are currently ongoing. So what we have done before this lunch club is we are always launching a poll online, and it's quite interesting this time. What we have seen is that how well informed people are around climate financing. So we see that I think one person was an expert, which is fantastic, but we do see that quite a few people do not actually have a lot of ideas around what is green climate financing, and some people have a little bit of an idea around that. We have also asked participants online, so what are the challenges you have identified in the climate financing landscapes? And then what for me stood out quite strongly is like the technology level, so how quickly technology can be actually adopted. There's a lack of information, but also the early stage funding, so to de-risk innovation and technology isn't as accessible for people. And that funding is mostly concentrated for cooperatives. So it's quite interesting to see those challenges that we have been put forward by our community. So just to mention again, obviously we believe in circular economy, that's the concept to drive our economic sectors forward. And just to give a quick recap around circular economy, it's really about 4 core principles. It's around designing out waste and pollution, keeping materials at their highest values, regenerating natural system. And also we always at the 4th principle is about benefiting all members of society. And obviously we want to direct the financing into that direction so that we can make circularity a reality. Just some background on financing. What we see is, and I think the first publication that really spoke to them was from Chatham House in 2021 is, and I've literally just copied and pasted it saying, well, we see a massive growth in circular economy financing, but it's not enough. So the current investment levels are too low to drive a global circular economy transition at scale. And unfortunately, even though that happened in 2021, we still see that nowadays. And interestingly enough, especially for low and middle income countries, this is the reality, right? We have seen recent developments, which is really amazing, is that multilateral development banks have started to commit to work towards circular economy financing on a global stage, also in low and middle income countries. So we have seen that it's the African Development Bank, the European Bank, European Investment Bank, and the World Bank Group. They are actually having a shared vision for a circular economy and how they can make that financing available, also through commercial banks. This is, I always love Sankey diagrams, but it's quite overwhelming, and we are going to share the presentations with you guys. It's the climate financing landscape of 2021-2022. Obviously, this is only targeted at climate financing, right? And what is quite interesting is that you obviously see governments spend quite a lot, and also the development financial institutions spend quite a lot of money or instruments around mitigation. So a lot is on mitigation, not so much on adaptation. So in my mind, circular economy is a lot around adaptation and mitigation, but we obviously want to adapt quite quickly and obviously mitigate as well. We do see that also the commercial financial institutions are spending quite a big chunk of funding towards climate smart funding. So that's quite interesting to see. And you can see that, yeah, they have quite a lot of power in the system, if I can put it that way. And remember, this is not all the funding that they have accessible, right? So we want to make them move even more into that direction. Then if you want to have a deep dive, as I said, the multilateral banks that are actually starting to have a shared vision around circularity, please have a look at this report. It's the Circular Economy in Motion report. And that has literally taken case studies, so projects that they have invested in, and just really nicely shown what they have actually achieved with those investments, obviously building a case study and a narrative for circular economy funding. And with that, I'm going to leave it. I am going to give over to Kuan from Green Cape and stop sharing my screen so that you can actually share your screen. Kuan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Yeah, let me share shortly. Please let me know if you're seeing it in slide view.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kuan Solomon, and I'm a green finance analyst at Green Cape. Essentially, I'll be speaking about unpacking the climate finance landscape within South Africa. But before I do so, let me just give a quick introduction to Green Cape and the work we do. So Green Cape is a not-for-profit sector-based development agency, essentially looking at driving the widespread adoption of economically viable green economy solutions. We cover a number of sectors, and circular economy being one, but we do also cover renewable energy, water and wastewater, sustainable agriculture, sustainable mobility, and then the green finance team supports each of those sectors. To date, we've facilitated over 42 billion rand of investments within the country, and we've created around 19,000 local jobs, but I think these numbers are to be updated. Essentially, we work at the intersection of government, academia, and industry, looking to remove those barriers to these economically viable green economy solutions. So without further ado, I'll jump into today's presentation. So what we'll be covering today is looking at what the current landscape for climate initiatives are, or for financing climate initiatives, and these being in relation to the South African economy. Then just unpacking what criteria and requirements financiers have for climate solutions, or in general as well, and then what sort of mechanisms and financial and non-financial support they are out there. So starting with the first topic and looking at the current landscape, Green Cape was commissioned by the Presidential Climate Commission alongside the Climate Policy Initiative to engage in an exercise to track the climate finance flows within South Africa. The years we covered or conducted this exercise for 2019 to 2021, and the reports were published in 2023. Essentially, what climate finance in this context entails is local, national, or transnational financing, which may be drawn from public, private, and alternative sources of financing. So these resources are intended to cover the cost of transitioning to a low carbon economy, and to adapt or build resilience against current and future climate change impacts. And yeah, as Kat was mentioning earlier, she shared the global landscape Sankey, and this one's more South African specific. So you can see over the course of those 3 years, the annual average was 131 billion rand. And what's interesting to note on both Sankeys is that circular economy, for context of today's discussion, doesn't necessarily appear as a category at the end use of the Sankey. And that's because I think the overall financing for circular economy accounts for less than 1%, which is actually surprising. So from the track climate finance, I went back to the data and I saw there's around 244 million rand that's represented by circular economy. Essentially, this 131 billion rand was tracked, but as Katrina said, there needs to be more done around climate finance and circular economy as well. And in line with our NDCs and net zero goals, this financing of 131 billion rand annual average needs to increase by 3 to 5 times to actually meet our climate goals, which is very shocking. And then just moving on, I won't touch too much onto this slide, but majority of our climate finance in South Africa comes from domestic sources, which is pretty interesting, and mostly debt finance and primarily going into renewable energy. And this could be seen from the lens of the response to the actual energy crisis within the country. So it does make a bit of sense. But further unpacking it, and just for the context of today's discussion, looking at where the circular or the finance is going for the circular economy. So just to reiterate, around 244 million annual average was tracked for those 3 years, which is less than 1% again. For the private sector, their investments around circular economy is also about 5 million rand annual average. The public sector is the majority financier, accounting for 239 million rands of finance, and majority of this finance comes from national treasuries, budget expenditure, and grant financing. So you can see those few pie charts where the finance is flowing. So about 2% is coming from private and 98% from public sources. And then commercial sources, 2%, DFI, 20%, and government, 78%. And then just looking at the actual solutions of where the finance flows. So e-waste refurbishments is 1%, material substitutions 23%, and dry waste recycling being 66%. And then it's further aggregated to wet waste and waste collection, sorting, and aggregation facilities. I'm not going to go too much into the definition of circular economy, but this is just an interesting graphic shared from the Waste Market Intelligence report that Green Cape produced in 2022, outlining where the market opportunities lie. So this is specifically for the city of Cape Town, so not on a national level, but it shows that composting organics sits at the low market entry barrier and market growth potential at really high. And then you have your black soldier fly with really high market entry, but low or high market growth potential as well. And then I want to reiterate the definition of circular economy. Just further unpacking that market intelligence report, so where the actual opportunities lie. So in organics, what are the drivers behind it? These being the ban of organics to landfill, increasing gauge fees that are happening, food loss and waste commitments by different industries, and electricity generation through biogas production. Some of the barriers to this include the low cost of landfilling, which is still current, inadequate source separation, and strict regulations as well. And then on the plastics side, looking at what the drivers are. So limited municipal landfill lifespan, the cost of operating landfills, climate mitigation, plastic packaging EPR as well. And some of the barriers around this include competition with higher quality imports, slow growth in the end markets, and high levels of contamination. And then the final opportunity under the circular economy landscape is looking at e-waste and the recovery of be it precious metals, looking at the limited municipal landfill lifespan as well. And some of the key barriers are access to feedstock, cherry picking of high value e-waste as well. So that's just on the opportunities. Some of the finance providers, and I won't go into too much detail here, but there's different sources of access. So from the public sector, you have the DBSA, you have the DTIC, the IDC as well, the private institutions as well. You have commercial banks, your private equities, fintech platforms. Then there's international sources as well, municipal and local government funding solutions as well, and different innovative financing solutions. So looking maybe specifically at the commercial banks, these are sort of some of the products that are in the market, and these may have changed since the preparation of this presentation. But you do have Nedbank, which is known as the Green Bank, which could have some interesting solutions for any of the businesses that are interested. You have Standard Bank as well, ABSA, FNB, and Investec. And then some philanthropic organizations as well that provide finance. So the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Coca-Cola, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well. Looking at your DFI, so your DBSA, IDC, the Green Climate Finance Fund as well, and then some hybrid innovations as well. And then, as mentioned in the Sankey diagram, that majority of the finance that comes for circular economy comes actually from local governments, and this just outlines each of the different mechanisms through local government that are accessible for solutions. So the DTIC has a number of grants, the DSI as well. What's not noted, oh, I see TIA as well has some seed funding. So solving for that very early stage funding, you could approach TIA for some grants as well. Yeah, so these are some of the government finance providers. Moving over to the criteria and what financiers actually require. They look at what is considered as bankable projects, and essentially these are credit-worthy, they generate sustainable returns and are able to meet the financial commitments. So there's two components of bankability in my eyes, and I would say these are quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative, all related to the financial positioning of the business. Are you able to generate cash flows? Do you have assets, profits? Do you have sufficient collateral or security to actually ensure that your lending is backed by something that can be called on should you default? And then looking at the qualitative components as well. So what is your team makeup? Is there a proper track record behind you? Do you have a proven technology? And yeah, and then just looking at what financiers are actually looking for. So they look around risk. Is it a risky project? What are the financial projections and returns, the profits and liquidity? Then also looking at the returns as well, and then the reliability of your team. So feeding back into that definition of bankability and those quantitative and qualitative components. And then this is just a checklist to see what sort of ideas come around bankability. So are you actually cash flow positive? Do you have a net working capital? Do you have collateral to secure your lending again? Audited financial statements? Do you have a strong management team? Where's your industry going? What does it look like? And then the character as well of the principles in the business. And then we come across from our discussions this bankability problem where financiers are saying that they have sufficient capital available, but they're not finding the projects on the ground and they're not finding the solutions. And solutions are saying they're having quite a tough time actually accessing this finance or even knowing what finance is out there. And essentially, there needs to be interventions to bring solutions and financiers to meet in the middle and kind of get them speaking the same language. And hopefully the next section covers that. But just looking at other factors that may influence the sort of financing you can obtain. So these being the prime lending rates, which is the rates set by the central bank. Also the type of loan and finance you require. So if it's short term, do you require working capital or invoice discounting or trade finance? At the longer term, is it term loans or you start looking at equity? Your risk profile as well influences the costing of the sort of finance you can obtain. And then collateral as well, depending on the financier, they may have different collateral requirements. And then just quickly on what sort of financing and non-financing mechanisms you can lean on to cover those issues of the bankability problem. So some government institutions and DFIs like the National Financial Literacy Association, it's a very important organization that helps with supporting around actual entrepreneur or consumer education. So in South Africa, we don't have formal credit bureaus. And when you apply for finance, your business is assessed on the risk of the actual principal. So your personal accounts actually affect your chances of getting finance for your business. So this organization, the NFLA, actually supports on ensuring that you have at least financial or consumer education to ensure that your house is in order and eases your chances for accessing finance. There's also the localization support fund, which outlines emerging industries, especially in the manufacturing space. They support with feasibility studies and help in that sense, of more non-financial. And then one interesting organization that plays a lot in the circular economy space is Vitola. So they have a number of funds. They also administer the Nedbank Green Economy Fund as well. They have a platform called Hulu, which seeks to match different solutions to sufficient finance. In the Nedbank Green Economy Fund, I think it is a grant fund as well, up to 250,000 if I'm not mistaken, which could support your solution. And then other sources of non-financial support being accelerators like the Savant Build program, the Partnership for Goods, which provides investment readiness and grant funding, and Circular SA, which Kiara will speak about later, the building a database, and Green Cape as well. So we run a number of initiatives, being the Green Outcomes Fund, the Climate Finance Accelerator, the Green Pitch Challenge, the SA Plastics Pact, which had a solution showcase as well, the Western Cape Industrial Symbiosis Program, as well as our own Green Finance database. But yeah, hopefully I've covered everything, and happy to take questions in the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kuan, for this very in-depth and brief overview. I'm going to hand over to Kira because I think it's very exciting what you're speaking about and how we're trying to link it in. And Kira, I think you can present on a database that you have put together and speak to why it is actually quite special.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kira Kroh-Pedersen. I've been supporting CSA on developing this database as a resource for their members. I won't take too much time because I think we should make sure that we have enough time for a little bit of discussion, especially following Kuan's really great presentation. But for the most part, the main point is that we have put together this packaged database on a number of different funding types for the circular economy, specifically looking at Africa, but with attempted focus on South Africa as well, given the South African locality of CSA. I think that it speaks to a number of the issues both Katerina and Kuan identified, that the circular economy landscape for financing is limited. There are about 70 plus resources on here, and they will keep being updated. But the point that is captured in this is that there are not a ton of places to find funding for circular economy. To kind of expand a little bit more on what we have captured here, we've gone across a number of different areas of the circular economy, so have tried to kind of filter out by topic matter. These are just heavy-hitting topic matters that we think are relevant in the South African landscape, but also to CSA. So e-waste, water, food systems, just transition, mining, textiles, packaging, built environment, recycling, or other. This is, for those familiar with ACF, built slightly around what the 5 big bets are for the African continent, but then also expands a little bit further from there. The types of funding are categorized by SMEs, grant, debt, equity, working capital, business development, or technical assistance. Here you can kind of segment out by that, but on the topic matter side, you can filter through yourself and then, as you see, kind of navigate the database in a pretty straightforward way. We try to keep it pretty simple, especially because there is not a ton of options available, but try to keep it straightforward, try to emphasize that circular economy is not a waste systems solution. It is a first life and second life and beyond understanding of what our economy and what our world means. And so try to integrate those components into this database itself. From our research, this is a pretty unique database. There are not a ton that are available in this type of format that are easily toggleable. Some places publish reports that are not dissimilar with kind of relevant information, but to have it in one centrally located place like this seems pretty novel at the moment. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, as I said, it tried to capture the whole system of circular economy as best as we can, and tried to also acknowledge the kind of interlink between what climate financing means and what circular economy means. Circular economy is a tool for a number of things: sustainable development goals, included, but is also, I think, a really valuable tool for climate adaptation and climate mitigation. But we didn't want to just replicate what GreenCape has done. So this is not a climate database. We did try and look at specifically what is allocated for circular economy, tried to also accommodate for the terms that are used interchangeably with circular economy, like resource security, and then also tried to stay away from specifically climate financing and just general green economy financing, because I think we are trying to really dig down that circular economy is different than those things. But yeah, here it is. It'll be hosted on the CSA website for members in their knowledge hub. And as I said, it's as comprehensive as we can manage, but we will keep building on it as we go. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kira. That's yeah, I'm really excited about this resource, and I'm really excited that we have this partnership also with GreenCape, you know, trying to pull everything together and trying to make sense of the system, what's out there at the moment. I know we're slightly running behind time, but I think it was worth the different presentation as well. So I'm just going to open up the floor if there are any questions. I saw one question is around if we're going to obviously share the information, as Kira said. It's the same with the slides, and also the database, all of it will be accessible on Circular South Africa's Knowledge Hub. So just sign up as a member, and then you can also toggle through all the resources that we actually have available on the Knowledge Hub. So I think that's a really nice way to get started also thinking about circularity. Are there any other questions that anyone has? I think you can just unmute your mic and go for it. Okay, I don't see any questions at the moment that anyone has. Oh, there's someone. Clofedo, do you want to ask a question?
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, I was just on mute. So I wanted to find out from the Green Cape funding that would they be open to funding due diligence of studies? There's a project that we want to onboard as Cartridge Depot, but we do not have a lot of information, and there's no company that's doing it currently in South Africa. I've been in contact with 2 other companies externally, so out of South Africa, and we want to obviously go there, learn from them and adapt in South Africa. Would it be something that they'll be willing to fund as part of the plan?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Kolo. Just in terms of funding, so GreenCape is a not-for-profit and we don't provide direct funding. We do have a number of support initiatives that we run. Happy to connect with you offline to see where we can actually work together, and if there is any direction or resources I can point you to as well.
Okay, thanks so much, Kun. Are there any other last burning questions before I'm closing off? I hope this has been really, really helpful to everyone. I know it's a tricky landscape to navigate, but we really hope that we make the resources available so that people can reach out to it. NCPC, the National Cleanup Production Center, is also currently busy with a database as well. So we're really trying to understand and consolidate those information so that people can actually access it in this global ecosystem of financing. If there are no more other questions, please also still feel free to reach out to us. We are quite present on all the social media channels if you do have any questions. And then I really want to thank Kira and Kuan for actually being part of the Lunch Club today, the last one of the year. And then we hope to see you next year. And I hope that all of you have a really, really nice break as well.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.